my intention tonight is not to entertain you. I really wish it was, but it's not. The intention is to share with you a very, very, very sad story, but as sweetly as possible, in hope that it would move you, not to anger or reaction, but to light and beauty, always. The way I would love to do that is by taking you on a poetic tour of the bombs that shaped my life and many Lebanese lives like Yumna's and others, and even some of your lives. And this poetic tour is by focusing on the poets and poetic bombs in the face of these bombs, and just to show as much beauty as we can and hope it would hold our attention away from the ugliness. This tour is half an hour long. It's a very intense half an hour. Maybe too much information, maybe too much heaviness, too much sadness. I don't know, but I apologize in advance. I'm not somebody who brings in any way or form sadness to anybody. I don't allow myself to do that or be overbearing in any way or form whatsoever. So I apologize in advance. If you feel it's heavy or sad, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and remember the bomb. I'm gonna start with my first love is a Syrian poet called Nizar Qabbani. He was born on 1923, died in 1998. But I'm taking you back to the year I was born, where a very special bomb fell on December 15, 1981, kind of 10 months after I was born, in which Nizar's wife at the time, her name is Balqis Al-Rawi, which means Queen Storyteller. He met her at a poetry recitation, and they got married. And a few years into it, a bomb that falls on the Iraqi embassy in Beirut kills her. He wrote a poem that day, a scathing poem that criticized all the Arab world, all Arab leaders, armies, and yet all the regimes and the newspapers published this poem. I remember I was 10 or 12 the first time I was told about it, and I liked that this was written on my birthday. I read about Balqis, this woman of his, this mistress of his, and then Beirut became his mistress, and he was the first or only poet I know who writes to a city as if she's a woman, with the whole ups and downs of a relationship you have. And this first one is called The Epic of Sadness. It's 3.5 minutes long. Your love taught me to grieve, and I have been needing for centuries a woman to make me grieve. For a woman to cry upon her arms like a sparrow. For a woman to gather my pieces like shards of broken windows. Your love has taught me, my lady, the worst habits. It has taught me to read my coffee cups 1,000 times a night. It has taught me to leave my house, to visit fortune tellers, to comb the sidewalks in search for your face in raindrops, in car lights, and to pursue your clothes in the clothes of people I don't even know. and to search for your image, even in the posters of advertisements. Your love has taught me to wander around for hours and hours searching for a gypsy's hair that all gypsy women will envy, searching for a face, for a voice, which is all the faces and all the voices. Your love sucked me, my lady, into the cities of sadness. And I, before you, never visited any cities of sadness. I didn't know that our humanity is in our tears, that humanity without sadness is only some shadow of some person. Your love taught me to behave like a boy, like a little boy, to draw your face with chalk upon the walls, upon the sails of fishermen's boats, on the church bells, on crucifixes. Your love taught me how love changes the map of time. Your love taught me when I love, the earth stops to turn. Your love taught me things that I could never account for. So I started reading children's fairy tales. I entered Genie's castles and I dreamt that she would marry me. The Sultan's daughter, those eyes clearer than the water of a cenote, those lips more desirable than the flower of pomegranate. And I dreamt that I would kidnap her like a knight in the night. And I dreamt that I would give her necklaces of pearl and coral. Your love taught me, my lady, what is insanity. It taught me how life may pass without the Sultan's daughter ever arriving. Your love taught me how to love you in all things, in a bare winter tree, in dry yellow leaves, in the rain, in a storm. Your love taught me to seek refuge in hotels without names, in churches without names, in coffee shops without names. Your love taught me how the night swells the sadness of strangers. It taught me how to see Beirut as a woman, a tyrant of temptation, as a woman wearing every evening the most beautiful clothing she possesses and sprinkling upon her breasts perfumes for the fishermen and for the princes. Your love taught me how to cry without crying. It taught me how sadness sleeps like a boy with his feet cut off. In the streets of Raushe and Hamra, your love taught me to grieve, and I have been needing for centuries a woman to make me grieve, for a woman to cry upon her arms like a sparrow, for a woman to gather my pieces like shards of broken windows. So this poem was written in 1978. The Lebanese Civil War had just started in 1975. My uncle died in 1977 because of another bomb. And Nizar's most famous poem is called Beirut, Mistress of the World. Beirut, you mistress of the world, we confess before the one God that we envied you, that your beauty hurt us. We confess now that we've mistreated you, that we've misunderstood you, and we had no mercy and didn't excuse you. And we offered you a dagger in place of flowers. We confess before the fair God that we injured you, that we tired you, that we angered you and made you cry, and we burdened you with our violence. Ya Beirut, the world without you is just not enough. We now realize your roots are deep inside us. Your roots hit us deep inside. We now realize how we've wronged you, to what extent we've offended you. Rise, Beirut, rise from under the rubble, like a flower of almond in April. Get over your sorrow. Revolutions are born in the womb of grief. Revolutions are born in the womb of grief, only in the womb of grief. Rise in honor of the forests. Rise in honor of the rivers. Rise in honor of humankind. Rise, Beirut, rise. So the proceedings of these two poems were around 50 years ago. So we passed from the poem that happened last week, from the bomb that happened last week, 50 years ago. Now we're going almost 90 and 100 years ago to the time of Gibran, Khalil Gibran. I don't know if you're familiar with this poet, artist, painter, philosopher. He's considered Lebanon's most famous. And I have a very personal story with Gibran. We were from the same place, lived in Boston for like over 10 years. I lived in front of his girlfriend's place. I've pursued his stories, his plays. I produced twice of his plays. He's won many awards. Thanks to Radio Tulum who's helping us with this. We're bringing it to Boston, to Tulum very soon. And if this is a person who interests you, I would love for you to join us and know more about this amazing individual. Gibran's Bomb is The Prophet, a book he wrote in 1923 in a language that's not his language. The two poems I'm reading for him today were translated from Arabic, but actually after him writing in Arabic for a while, he moved to Boston, then to New York, and then in 1923 he dropped a bomb called The Prophet. While he's an Arab living in an American country, and this book happened to sell more books in the 20th century than any other book except the Bible. So it's a book of non-religion playing up there with the big religion books. And this is important because the plights of Lebanon are all rooted in religion and stories of faith. Gibran, in these two poems, which are 90 and 100 years back exactly to the day, are being written in response to a great famine that happened in Lebanon between 1915 and 1918. That's the bomb then. It was where First World War I was happening. And he wrote a letter telling his patron at the time, Mary Haskell, I quote, "The famine in Mount Lebanon has been planned and instigated by the Turkish government. Already 80,000 have succumbed to starvation and thousands are dying every single day. A period of mass starvation during World War II ending with 200,000 deaths, 50% of the population of this mountain." And I'm reading what he's telling these leaders then, and I'm sure any Lebanese would echo these exact same words right now to the same cronies sitting in their chairs. This one's called Pity the Nation, and it's written in 1921. Pity the nation that is full of beliefs and empty of religion. Pity the nation that wears a cloth it does not weave, and drinks a wine that flows not from its winepress. Pity the nation that acclaims the bully as hero and that deems the glittering conqueror bountiful. Pity a nation that despises a passion in its dream yet submits in its awakening. Pity the nation that raises not its voice save when it walks in a funeral, boasts not except among its ruins, and will rebel not save when its neck is laid between the sword and the block. Pity the nation whose statesman is a fox, whose philosopher is a juggler, and whose art is the art of patching and mimicking. Pity the nation that welcomes its new ruler with trumpeting and farewells him with hooting, only to welcome another with trumpeting again. Pity the nation whose sages are dumb with years and whose strong men are yet in the cradle. Pity the nation divided into fragments, each fragment deeming itself a nation. So this was Gibran 90 years ago. So I have another poem here called My Countrymen, but it's just too heavy. I can't even reread it now, so allow me to skip it. And I want to come to the master of light, who's Rumi. Rumi is 800 years ago. The bomb that this guy represents is the following. If I ask you what polarity exists on the top of world powers today, one could tell me Iran and the States. Imagine that 800 years ago, Rumi, who is a Muslim, Persian, Irani cleric, who half what he wrote was about love and the other half was about God and Islam, is the most selling poet in the United States of America. These who stand at extreme polarities, who's hated most, selling most here. This is the bomb or non-bomb of art in the face of bombs. Just like Gibran's Prophet, this is what Rumi represents. And I want to read two very short poems that are half a minute long. One is called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing out your time for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The next poet by Rumi is called Only Breath. Not Christian or Jew or Muslim, not Hindu, Buddhist, Sufi or Zen. Not any religion or cultural system. I am not from the East. I am not from the West. Not out of the ocean or up from the ground. Not natural or ethereal. Not composed of elements at all. I do not exist. I'm an eternity, an entity in this world. I'm not, nor in the next. I did not descend from Adam and Eve or any origin story. My place is placeless, my trace is traceless. Neither body or soul, I belong to the beloved, have seen the two worlds as one, and that one called to and know, first, last, outer, inner, only that breath-breathing human being. This is Rumi.
Bravo.
So I'm going to close with three poems by me, and they're each a minute long. The first one's called Breathe. And just visually, this poem looks like this. And ends with a question mark. We should not tolerate. Breathe. We should tolerate everything. We should tolerate everything except the lack of it. The only fight worth having is against intolerance. To be fought gently. No sticks, just less carrots. Perhaps it's all about getting to the other side. Stripping all judgment and opposition until we get there and discover others in us. As light floods dark, sound fills silence. Like water glues life, love binds us all. The unknown becomes more known. God falls from the sky, lands here. They begets we, you become me, and games cease to find players. For thought is a bird of space, that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly. Let labels fall, so fights can miss sides, and chains lack ground. Distances need an end, ending beyond starts. Bring yours to mine, or just wait on me to get to yours. Feel your breath, size its depth, rebalance to none. Peace, here, now, you, me. In. So this is Breathe. My second poem is called The Kingdom, and I think this is my angriest poem, and I would like to address it to whoever hid these gazillion tons of aluminum nitrate in the middle of Beirut, and to whoever asks us to fight in the name of God or death or rebirth in some paradise with many virgins. And this is the kingdom. We're asked to celebrate that myth of sacrificing life for glorious death. We're asked to celebrate that myth of sacrificing life for glorious death. The cause may be just, but a killing renders it evil, guised in the excuse you fashion only as to camouflage your yearn for power in a paradise, taking us to these promised lands, rivers of honey and many virgins. But wait, who wants that tightness of a flesh untried by a life lived wide? What dull imagination if it assumes utopia is where you top this year? We celebrate death as a part of life, lived gloriously to brims of excess. For how could we tell what's wider than wide, since we do not decide how long we live, but only how rich? Contrast elbows spectrums to form how colors or taste or notes wrap the cage we gift wrap as the norm. All we should care about is what rules rule the destination we're alive for. All we should care for is what rules rule the destination we're alive for. Freedom, my dears, is the only start that qualifies any spot over this spot. So tell us, please, what laws govern the heaven you want us to fight for? It doesn't change where we're from, but it changes where we should go.